Devin Haney. He's calling Ryan Garcia on his bull-ish. He says Ryan is the true definition of a coward. A few weeks ago he won his sympathy because he was having mental health issues. This week he's talking shit about me. After Devin defeated Jorge Linares, Ryan said, "Good fight, but I am sorry, Devin, I would have slept you," said Garcia on Instagram. Now, the problem with this is he had the chance to do that. He won an eliminator against Luke Campbell, but declined the offer. Then he was booked to fight Javier Fortuna. He walked away from that fight through mental health issues. Now, as a man in his 50s, who will probably say he's set in his ways on a lot of topics, I can only compartmentalize it how I'm going to do so and say, fragile people, stay out of the firing line of verbal attacks. Because if you're that fragile and you're getting involved in these Twitter wars, you only have yourself to blame if you suffer a relapse in your alleged recovery. Or are you bullshitting us and using this mental health thing to either garner some sympathy, popularity, or get you out of fights? What's real and what's not real? Now, some of you were saying, that's a bit hard, Beats. I mean, he's going through what he's going through. He's under pressure. Well, whether you're under pressure or going through psychological issues or not, the world keeps moving. And as well as people going easy on you, you have to hear some real ish too to snap out. Or not to snap out, or to enable yourself to heal and recover. If you're a boxer and the toxic environment of boxing on Twitter, Instagram, etc., YouTube, and you feel you're vulnerable, it's time to fall back from Twitter wars and Twitter beefs, but he's choosing not to do that. This is Devin's third defense of his belt. He's beat someone who Ryan has ducked. Smack talk is reserved for active fighters who want to take on the best, not unproven fighters who have psychological issues and have ducked the best after the best time after time. That's the bottom line. Sounds harsh, but there has to be guidelines, even if he is fragile. If you want sympathy, act like you need sympathy. If you talk smack, people are going to assume that you're ready to take smack talk back. John Fury, I want to do the best for Tommy and Tyson, but Tyson's on a different level. 20,000 yes men around him. He's over 21, he can do what he wants. He seems to be saying that Tyson was not complicit in swerving the Anthony Joshua fight. On the 11th hour, they change opponent, he says. It's diabolical. You're geared up to fight one man, and then on the 11th hour, it all changes. And in 24 hours, you're fighting Deontay Wilder. He seems to be dumping it all on Bob Arum's doorstep that they've messed this up. Now, I'm sorry to inform Tyson Fury fans and John Fury about this. Fury has said on a few occasions he could be fighting Deontay Wilder because there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. Mixed messages consistently. Yeah, I'll fight AJ, but then again, I'll fight some bum just to stay active. The fight's on, the fight's off. And John has sung the same chorus as Tyson Fury. Now he's coming out in this interview like they've always wanted to fight. This is all they've dedicated themselves to is the AJ fight. And that's not true. So anybody saying Tyson Fury didn't know what was going on 100% is disingenuous. I don't think he 100% knew what was going on. He's a boxer. He's got people paid to be handling this stuff. Back to John Fury. He said anything rushed is no good. He says he wanted the AJ fight and Tyson wanted the AJ fight. You know, we heard John saying they've got a few days to sort it out. And he means Eddie. He wasn't even talking about Bob or Frank Warren. Or we're moving on. We're going to fight anybody. He just needs to fight. Did he sound like somebody who was enthusiastic for the fight? He says, now they're rushing into a fight with Wilder after the arbitration, and rushing into anything is never good. But at the same time, he was rushing Eddie to close the deal with the Saudis. So he's all over the place. Negotiation finishes when negotiation finishes. He was going into tirades about the pandemic. And this is why the Saudis are not going to put the fight on. So it's hard to trust the Furies, John and Tyson.
Not cricket, is it? Mean no harm to Bob. He's probably got his intentions right, but it's all about money and what they can do. All this is benefiting the Americans, you know, because they never wanted the Saudi fight, did they? Never wanted it. Tyson wanted it. I wanted it. Everybody in the world wanted it. You know, and what we got? Deontay Wilder. So, beat him to pieces last time we weren't in a fight. But you can get complacent. Probably see a different Deontay Wilder this time. Probably a lot different. AJ and USYK.
I'm no expert psychologist at reading things, but my gut instinct is telling me it's a mixture of paranoia. He's a little shook. He's out of the loop because Tyson's in America and he's in the UK, and he's panicking a little. He was worried about Tyson being inactive and the threat of AJ, and now there's a change of opponent. He's worried about the threat of Wilder and how motivated he might be to avenge the loss. So he wants Tyson Fury to come back home, reset, think it over, because this is something they've did before. Like when Derek Chisora pulled out of what was going to be their second fight, and Ustinov came in, looking big, looking, this is a little different from the Derek fight, and a lot of people were, like wondering what would happen if we put Tyson in there with someone the same size as him. And they pulled out. After Tyson repeated 2 or 3 times in the press conference, I'm being set up here. I'm being set up by the Klitschko's and all these mysterious powers in boxing. Whether Tyson Fury was aware to the fullest extent of the conditions of the arbitration or not, he has let down British boxing big time. And the messed up thing is he doesn't care. All he's done is complain that AJ didn't deserve his belts. He only got them because they were persecuting him. And he was innocent in everything. Right. He's badmouthed Britain. I'm never fighting here again. Hasn't renewed his license. Then he announces August the 14th he's going to be fighting AJ in Saudi Arabia. The next day, I'm fighting Wilder. And then they've got stadiums, dates, locations, and everything within what seemed seconds after the arbitration. All in place. How about you give the British fans, your fans, the third Wilder fight in Britain? I'm sure there must be some leverage for him right now. After he battered Wilder and now he's the champion. You're the champion. Don't you have no leverage? Why don't you fight him in Britain? Bob must have an incentive not to take the AJ fight. And don't tell me some funny arbitration, right? Which John himself is saying, like Eddie said.
Because this arbitration could have been squashed in December, but they didn't squash it. They ran out of time. Why didn't they squash it then when they knew this big fight was happening?
Now, what does John know from what he doesn't know? I don't know. Maybe he just heard Eddie Hearn say that and repeats it. And Aaron hasn't responded not once. And the more you extract from the story, you see that John is basically a rat on a sinking ship. He's jumping off to absolve himself of any liability to the mixed messages we've been getting. And Frank Warren's doing the same. He's reacting to John Fury and the BT video. Fury said that Tyson should have threw the belt in the bin and fought AJ. Now, Frank is saying, it's easy to say that, but it has no bearing whatsoever on the judgment cast in the arbitration case that ruled in Deontay Wilder's favour. But before that, look what he says here. It had been down to Top Rank to enforce a reported cancellation clause last December, which could have seen Fury by himself and out of the return fight with Deontay Wilder instead of going to arbitration. So what Eddie said was correct. And that's why Frank didn't say, Eddie's talking bullshit. That's not the case. He said a lot of shit like, Eddie's never seen the contract to have known that. But Eddie was right. He was 100% right. And John Fury was right. And now Frank is selling out Bob Arum saying, you could have enforced a cancellation. When did John find out that they could terminate the contract in December? Did he know that in December? Because if he did, then this hurts his credibility, especially with this interview, because he's acting like he was really enthusiastic for the AJ fight. And I remember him distinctively not being so. He bitched and complained about Tyson being inactive, like they was almost being stitched up. And we have to assume that if John knew they could have terminated in December, Tyson Fury knew. Sounds to me like John's snitching on himself without realising it. He has no control over the situation being in England and Tyson's over there in America. It's simple as that. And throwing a few toys out the pram. I heard Shelly Finkel said after they beat Tyson Fury that Wilder was going to go after AJ for undisputed, but we haven't forgot Shelly Finkel's part in Wilder turning down the DAZN deal, which would have gave us an undisputed heavyweight title fight. Shelley said the deal meant effectively signing Deontay over to them, including a purse before the Tyson Fury rematch. Who's them? You don't work for Al Heyman, do you? Or Showtime? So all this free agent, I'm a boss talk from these PBC fighters, especially Wilder, is nonsense. Then Richard Schaefer, he stepped in and said he's got a moral obligation, maybe not a contractual obligation, to those who built his career. Who was he talking about? Showtime?
I don't know what the contractual situation is with Wilder, but I'm sure if he says that he's a free agent, he must be a free agent, you know.
Come on, Rich, me old son. We all know that Wilder ain't no free agent. Or Charlo. It's a joke. Now, those of you who believe that Shelly Finkel will try and make AJ versus Wilder if Wilder wins, I'm curious to know what makes you believe that. Not that I necessarily take you serious, I'm just curious to understand what would make you believe that. To me, it looks like he's clout chasing to build up Wilder and Fury free. And then when it comes to negotiating AJ versus Wilder, it's going to be the same old fuckeries again. Oh, we're not going to allow our fighters to go on DAZN. If DAZN make the bigger offer, then where should the fight go? On Showtime? Isn't that what happened last time? See, this is what a lot of you who support Wilder don't understand. There's two parties involved. One party pitches up an offer, and if you don't come back with an offer, then you either fight on the terms of the party that pitched up the biggest offer, or you duck. Or don't you get it? Is that too complicated for you? Or do I need to put some woke type of platitude between my sentences to try and relate it to you better? Jean Pascal, he popped for 3 separate steroids and put the Badou Jack rematch on the scrap heap. Obviously, he's in denial and vowed to clear his name of any wrongdoing. He said he's shocked, he's embarrassed. He would never voluntarily take illegal substances. He's always fought for a clean sport and will continue to do so. He said he's one of the first modern boxers to insist on random testing. He's passed countless tests during his 13 years at the highest level of boxing. He wants to assure all of his fans that this is an isolated incident and he's willing to do whatever it takes to prove it. He's fired his unnamed strength and conditioning coach last night. He realizes that no matter what he says, that it's a stain on his name, but he's determined to wash away the stain. If it means he has to come out of pocket for the most advanced 365 days random VADA testing available to boxers, then that's what he'll do. Boxing fans are in disbelief all around the world because of his lengthy contributions at world level to boxing, and they feel let down. But with the number of substances found in his system, just like his fellow Haitian, Jerome Miller, how does he clean the stain from off his record, is what we have to ask. Now, their first fight was in 2019, late 2019, and I thought Badou Jack won the fight, but Pascal got a decision. It wasn't a robbery or anything like that. Badou Jack, he replied on Twitter and said, "The show must go on. Alhamdulillah." Dervin Colina, he replaces him. Colina is unbeaten, 13 KOs in 15 fights. He's ranked 13 by the WBA. This is all on the Mayweather-Logan Paul undercard this Saturday. They've got another crazy match where NFL Pro Bowl wide receiver Chad Johnson takes on Brian Maxwell, a mixed martial artist who lost his only professional boxing match. But we've also got Jarrett Hurd versus Luis Arias. I'm disappointed with Jean Pascal. Been watching him for a long time. He rarely disappoints. He hasn't fought since 2019. He had that great 2019 where he knocked out Marcus Brown and got the split decision over Badou Jack. But I guess people are going to be looking at the ripped and jacked physique at 38 years of age and put 2 and 2 together. And it doesn't look good, does it? Doesn't look good. It seems like you've got to toil through as much hybrid / celebrity geriatric matches for boxing news these days. So Saturday we got Logan Paul versus Mayweather. Tyron Woodley, who is a very good UFC fighter, is going to take on Jake Paul. Chavez Jr. is going to fight Anderson Silva on June the 19th. Clarissa Shields makes her MMA debut on June the 10th. UFC fighter George St. Pierre, his fight with De La Hoya, Oscar De La Hoya was vetoed by Dana White, which enraged Oscar. In response, Oscar challenged Dana to a fight, but Dana's about making money, not getting his hands dirty like that. So what does that mean for American boxing and the quote-unquote real boxing? I don't know. It's not that deep. It's not like the fighters over there today are as good as their predecessors. So just enjoy to watch what you want to watch, and what you don't want to watch, don't watch. Could be a transitional phase. The truth is, man, like, America respects money. That's what they respect. Now, everybody respects money, including the UK, but in the UK, there's a value for domestic boxing, British title fights, even Southern area, even up till today. But America is just all about money. And it always has been, but they always wanted to give you quality for your dollar. But right now, they're not even bothering with that. Now, some people are going to say this is Mayweather's fault, Money Mayweather. But I don't roll with that. I roll with you being an individual and making your own decisions and not trying to be like someone else. You know, the likes of Spence and the bootleg Floyd Mayweathers out there in the PBC. Be your own man. Floyd is Floyd. But every negotiation with a potentially good fight that people want to see in America, you hear an American boxer normally talking about money. It's always money. Oh, I'm getting this, so I don't need that. Oh, you're not offering me what I'm worth, and I'm the A side. I tell you what, Errol Spence better win that fight. That Pacquiao fight that Al Heyman managed to snag for him. You better win that. Because a lot of the hopes for the future of American boxing are tied in to the PBC. That's the truth. I would say Wilder needs to beat Fury, but it's more likely Errol Spence will beat Pacquiao than Wilder beating Fury, judging by the second fight that Fury and Wilder had. I mean, Manny's already run through Broner, Thurman, and now he's going for the top PBC dog. If he runs through him, could take the PBC stable a little while to recover from that one. I mean, look what direction that Showtime Boxing is winning, unashamedly, and I can't blame them. They know more about programming their products than I do. They're broadcasting Floyd versus Logan Paul. They've signed Jake Paul to fight Tyrone Woodley. Could be just a transitional phase, but it's a situation that's beyond one individual to fix in America. So we just have to roll with what they're producing right now. In the UK, Frank Warren just revealed on Seconds Out that John Richardson, if that's how you pronounce it, is going to be taking over from MATCHROOM when they leave to go over to the Zone. Richardson is basically a former head of boxing for MATCHROOM. We're talking about late 90s when Frank was basically the man at Sky and was kicking Barry's ass all around the place. Barry was barely putting on any cards. He was concentrating on darts. John was apparently an integral part of MATCHROOM staying afloat during the lean years. Very low key, can't find any pictures of him. It's fair to say it could take him a little time to build a stable. All depends on what kind of contacts he's got, you know, what investment they're going to give him. So Wasserman / Salins, they didn't get the gig. MTK, they didn't get the gig. Eddie Hearn says Joshua will vacate WBO belt rather than enter purse bids for Alexander USYK fight. Now, it's not as simple as he wanted to fight and he ducked. A challenger always gets a generous share of the pot. Against Anthony Joshua, this will more than likely be USYK's biggest purse. I think rather than ask, why would AJ vacate the belt? Why wouldn't USYK accept the terms and not let it go to purse bid? But then again, I don't know what kind of split they're offering USYK before it goes to a purse bid. I don't know. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really care. I don't really care. I think after trying to attain 2 undisputed fights with Fury and Wilder, and neither negotiation that collapsed being his fault, I don't really care if you say AJ's a ducker and, you know, you want to critique. I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me anyway. I don't see USYK as an outstanding challenger. He hasn't done anything outstanding at heavy, to be honest with you. It depends how you see it, really and truly. I think at this stage here, a couple of fights in America, taking on Ruiz, Wilder in America, maybe Tyson Fury, is probably the direction that seals his legacy. Because as much good Joshua has done in the UK with his numbers, his victories, collecting belts, beating top 10 fighters, if you were to ask anyone who was being honest, not really anyone who's being honest, not necessarily, but anyone who has any common sense or boxing knowledge, what territory, apart from the United Kingdom, where you've already sealed your legacy, would you like to see your legacy? And it would have to be America. The trilogy against Andy Ruiz, run that one back in the MSG, is a bigger fight worldwide than Alexander USYK. And despite some hardcore boxing fans saying they'd like to see AJ fight Alexander USYK and they'll give him all his due, most people are not going to give AJ his due. They're going to say USYK was a pumped up cruiserweight who never performed at heavy and that the cruiserweight division wasn't all that. They'll be saying he still hasn't fought Fury and Wilder. He's not a big name in America. USYK has no power. That's all what a lot of the critics in the media and boxing fans are going to be saying. I mean, haven't Wilder and Fury already set a template for the dominant heavyweights out of the three of them, AJ, Wilder and Fury, that your number one contender, mandatory status or unification matches don't matter. We do what we want. You want AJ to play by the rules, the sanctioning body rules, while his main rivals are running rogue. I don't want to go too far because he hasn't dropped the belt, he hasn't vacated it yet, he hasn't had a history of avoiding mandatories. It's his decision, and you can either tune in or tune out. But he's the unified champion, must have some leverage to take matters into his own hands.